Oh, let me tell you something. Bustin' makes me feel good.
Hey everybody, welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, all the way from his couch in New York, Dave Sirus. Cyrus?
Hey.
Sirus?
Cyrus, of course.
Cyrus, I got it right. I've been so
Virus. Yes. How we doing, Jay?
worried. Dave, I'm doing swell. It is very hot. It's gloomy. I've got a Topo Chico, and I'm ready to talk shit about Master of Disguise with you.
I can't get those in New York. It really pisses me off.
They don't have Topo Chicos?
No, they don't. There's like no mineral water. There's no like natural spring type. I love Topo Chico, and I can't get it here.
That's such a shame. You should lobby. Go to your bodega. See if they can get them in. They're so great.
That's the thing. We don't have enough of like a Latin American population here to fill the need for Topo Chico. It's really sad.
Fair.
There's all the bodegas here are run by Russians. It's really.
Yeah, they're not going to go for Topo Chico for you.
It's just like the only exotic things you can get here are cabbage.
It's like I still live. You used to live in West Hollywood. All the Russian stores around here with the ice cream brands I'd never heard of, and walking around there, Daju ice cream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the same kind of thing. Same kind of thing in Brooklyn. But the thing is, my neighborhood, I live in South Brooklyn where no one cool lives. So it's exclusively Orthodox Jews and recent Russian immigrants.
Okay.
So I don't go to the bars.
It's probably a better move. I don't know how many of them are going to the bars either. Dave, before we get into Master of Disguise, just if you don't know, Dave is a great stand-up, great writer, and one of the writers of The King of Staten Island, which I watched recently. One of my favorite movies of the year so far. Very funny.
Thank you for paying for that.
Very heartfelt. I ponied up the $20. It's worth
I
the
wouldn't,
$20.
so thank you.
How's your summer been? How are you? You movie released. You're in South Brooklyn. How's life?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm busy these days. I got a lot of stuff I gotta stay on top of. It's weird being busy but not being allowed to leave the house. Like this whole quarantine thing. The best part about it was this whole like just take a year off. Let's just take a year off of anything. Mm-hmm. And now I actually have to like do stuff, and it's like, oh, that's not fair. I can't go to the gym, but I could have like 2 jobs. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that's not. I'm in the same boat. I did not plan on having to do an ass load of work, the same level of work that I would be doing if I weren't in quarantine. It's just like, oh, okay. I thought I was going to get some time to relax, breathe.
Yeah, like I've gotten to the point where it's like I'm committed to like 6 hours of TV a day, and I'm not ready to let go of that. That's just part of staying home. Is you're guaranteed to watch like daytime TV, and it's fine. I'm just I haven't done like any live shows or anything. I have a lot of friends who have, and I don't know. I just don't feel like I deserve it. I feel like it's like because I got to take care. Like I live near my grandmother, so like I've had to be the one to like drive her around and stuff, and there's like stuff I have to take care of her so that because she doesn't have anyone she's interacting with anymore. Mm-hmm. So like I have that extra kind of like I have to be careful because if she dies, it's 100% my fault.
Oh yeah.
So it prevents me from wanting to like go out or do anything really.
Yeah, that's probably a smart. If I were in a position like that, I would also be very tightly locked down.
Yeah. So I've just been cooking a lot. I learned a lot about cooking and about how like if you can pretty much fill all your time doing nothing if you just want to.
Yeah, it's very easy to idle away the day if you really put your mind to it. You can focus on nothing a long time.
Yeah, you can just spend an entire day making a stew.
Yeah. Oh my God. Make a nice chili. Make some oatmeal. Takes a long time.
Been making ice cream.
You've making ice cream?
Yeah, I got an ice cream maker right before this all happened, and now I've really been using it. Because now it's the kind of thing where if I want to eat badly, I have to make it myself at least. I won't, like that's like the deal. If I want to eat something terrible, the deal is I have to like spend the time making it from scratch. Like,
yeah, that's a better move. It'll keep you, you have the knowledge of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm choosing to make something that's going to be bad for me, but I did it myself.
Yeah, like I made pretzels, and it's just like I could have bought a bag of these for like $1. What the hell am I doing?
That's how I feel. I've been making a lot of like sweet potato fries and like. Just roasted vegetables and like big pots of pasta, and it's like this is not healthy by any means, but I feel like I've accomplished something at least. I'm accomplishing something in my unhealthiness.
Yeah. You're doing something. You're at least. It's not. It's such a minuscule difference, but whatever. We all have something we have to cling to stay alive.
Exactly. Now. Speaking of things to cling to after you stay alive, how did Dana Carvey decide to keep living after Master of Disguise?
Well, here's the thing about Master of Disguise. There are a lot of things about this movie that will shock you, but nothing more so the fact that it was profitable. That this movie made money. Did fine.
Yeah, it was $16 million, I think, for the budget, and it made like 43 back at the box office.
Right, which means it actually made money, because if it cost 16 to make, that means that the actual overhead was well over 20. Mm-hmm. Because, those budgets are always more than they say because of advertising and everything else. So, like, that's why you could still be unprofitable. Like, Justice League made like $700 million, but I think it was not a profitable actual movie. Right. Whereas, like, 16 versus 40, he actually definitely made money. That movie made, if he had back end, he might have even gotten some of it. Like, that is shocking. Because it's 2002, so it's not that different numbers-wise, population. But 40 million is, like, respectable. That's how much, like, Private Parts made.
Yeah. And to make that much money, even after not doing great as far as, like, box office ranks, like, it never rose above being third at the box office. It was out of theaters very quickly because of how bad the actual movie was. But it's still
savaged by critics. Everyone thought this movie made $5 million. Like, this movie, you would have sworn this was one of those bombs that like just lost a bunch of money and ruined his career, and it didn't. Even though 40's not great, but it was so bad that people were like, it doesn't matter. We're not doing another one of these.
Yeah.
And technically, he made enough that like you could have gotten a sequel.
For sure.
A profit. So that was the most shocking thing to me, to find out this movie was a success.
It's so bad, and I have a history with this movie because when it came out my 12th birthday. It came out that weekend. And my birthday party was going to see this movie in theaters with a bunch of my friends. My mom bought all of us Halloween masks to wear to the movie theater because it's the Master of Disguise.
This was an event.
It was a whole thing, dude. It was a whole event. We went out for pizza afterwards. We saw this movie, and the movie itself, for me, I don't remember a whole lot about it from watching it. I don't remember if I liked it as a kid. I remember probably quoting some lines, like rewatching it for this podcast. I saw parts that I was like, oh, I definitely latched onto a couple of these lines and probably quoted them annoyingly to my friends for a little while. But as far as even a movie for kids goes, because kids' movies, I feel like you sort of have to grade them on a curve as adults because they're written primarily for kids, and so they just hit you differently. But even a movie that's like made for kids, I think should still have enough that like the parents who are dragged along to see these movies should get some sort of merit out of it at a bare minimum. A Master of Disguise fails to do that on top of failing to be an actually decent kids movie. It's just garbage through and through. Top to bottom.
Here's the thing about that. I do not believe that this movie was intended to be for kids.
Yeah, I don't think
that
it was
he
either.
thought he was writing a wacky adult comedy. I mean, we know what he was trying to do. He was trying to do Austin Powers.
Yeah.
He was trying to do his Austin Powers to prove that Mike stole from him and that he was the real talent, and that, he was mad that Dr. Evil was just an impression of Dana's impression of Lorne.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously he must have been mad that he wasn't involved in Austin Powers at all.
Had to have been.
And this was, I believe, after Austin Powers 2. And so he definitely thought, because tone-wise, it's very similar to Austin Powers. You really get the impression like this is supposed to be in a similar kind of universe, but the writing is just so bad that it just defaulted to being a kid's movie.
Yeah.
And because Dana relies way too much on, like, schmaltzy, like, there's way too much of, like, an attention to, like emotion in, like, that sweet kid movie way that he just kind of has on his own, that it makes it feel like a kid's movie, even though I think it was intended for, like, teenagers and college students and young adults to be into, really. But like, the little kid, it's just like, this was supposed to be just your, you're saving the cat moment, and instead it comes across like a Sesame Street episode.
Yeah, and all of the stuff, like watching now, seeing some of the jokes that are, like, there's this, I haven't seen a kid's movie, I don't think ever, where a plot point is that Pistachio Disguisey, the lead character, where the lead character of the movie wants to have sex with his mom's fat ass.
Yeah, he definitely had the character has a pronounced fetish for big asses, which, to be fair, ahead of its time. This is 2002. True. We had Jennifer Lopez, but this is before, like, things really exploded in that way. It was really, I guess, sort of the precipice. And I think it was interesting that all the big asses that you see are fake, because if they were real, it would be perverse. It would be nearly pornographic.
It would not be a PG movie. It would at least get a bump up into PG-13 territory. But
yes, the fact that the character lusts for big asses, which, I mean, I think we can say is a more adult thing than if it was just boobs or just beautiful ladies.
Yeah.
It was just the fact that it's about asses makes it so viscerally sexual.
It's so and so unnecessarily sexual too.
Adds nothing to the movie. Doesn't really add to the character. There is nothing there other than the implied, He has sex with women, in theory.
I mean, watching it again, you can tell that it's so clearly, it's really all over the place as far as the kinds of jokes that are made. It doesn't really feel like it's supposed to be a kid's movie. There's a lot of jokes that are pop culture references that there's no way a child is going to understand.
Pop culture references that were extremely dated at the time anyway. Mm-hmm. Jaws. Scarface. Those were 30 years old at this point. Those were old references for Dana Carvey.
Yeah. But he just felt like he had to bust out those impressions, I guess, because he knew he had him in the bag.
And the funniest thing about it is, and this was also the same problem, because you remember his previous movie was Opportunity Knocks, which was another movie. Yeah, that was his other movie, which I believe was more successful. At least it was more respected. That was a 90s movie that Dana Carvey did. Also incorporating him being this amazing mimic, which he is not. Like, Dana Carvey's not known as being a great impressionist. He's known as being a funny character actor who makes impressions of people that he just makes them funny. But he doesn't really do anything to his voice. He's not like one of those guys who could just, he's not Bill Hader. He doesn't become someone else. He just does wacky, characters. Opportunity Knocks was really bad. There's a scene where he does his impression of George H.W. Bush in it, and it tricks someone into thinking it's the real president, and it's just like, just stop it.
Yeah, that's one of the parts in this movie that's completely ridiculous and doesn't even make good comedic sense, is at the very end when he does the impression of just George W. Bush, which is just a slightly tweaked version of his George H.W. Bush impression.
And you can't even tell that that's who it's supposed to be. And by the way, I'm glad that you saw that, because that's not in every version of the movie. There are some
really?
versions of the movie without that whole scene.
I
added that.
I got my hands
later.
on a good version.
Yeah, no, it sucks to not see that version because then you don't see like the big payoff of Data doing the final fart in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to be fair, one of the only actual funny things in the movie.
The last great fart.
Well,
the
just
explosive.
Data's fart running gag becomes funny eventually because of how many times they do it, and because, like, let's be fair, more than anything, I wanted for Data to have a career. I wanted Brent Spiner to do well. You know, this was his big. The fact that this was his big movie. This was the last time we gave Brent Spiner a chance to play someone not named Data in a movie. It's so sad.
So sad.
Because he deserved better. He really deserved better. He should have been a big star.
Now, Dave, do you remember what it was like like your initial watching of this movie? Do you remember how you felt, or like what led to you feeling this way about Master of Disguise? Besides the obvious fact that the movie's total fucking garbage.
I only saw this a few years ago. So I was already an adult. I was already in retrospect of, I remember when this disaster came out, and then finding out it was profitable, be like, really? And then watching it, because here's the funny thing about my connection to this movie. I write for Robert Smigel.
Mm-hmm.
Trying things with Comic-Con and other things we do. Robert was good friends with Dana, and at SNL, they wrote a ton of stuff together. However, believe it or not, Robert had nothing to do with Master of Disguise, which you can kind of tell.
You can kind of tell.
Because Robert's a very good writer. And this was written exclusively by Dana and the guy who wrote the Deuce Bigalow movies.
Oh, God. I mean, it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, and which is even confusing because Deuce Bigalow is a significantly better movie than this. It's not great, but it's better. So, but yeah, I was just honestly thinking like, wow, I wonder like why Dana did not tap his, his famous friends to help him with this. Could it have been just him wanting to be the final word and everything and really believing in himself as a writer? Because, I saw it, and the first time I saw it, it was just enjoying what a train wreck this was.
Yeah.
And being just dumbfounded that this happened. Just one of those movies where you're like, because I feel like I see that a lot, where I'm just like, who wasn't putting their foot down? Like, sometimes you get the impression that what you're watching is the problem of an overly powerful actor who no one could say no to. That's what I sort of got the impression of, because I'm just like, everyone there must have known. Everyone on that set had to realize how bad this was going and how sweaty and unfunny Dana's just dalliances were. When he's Abraham Lincoln and he's dancing, and he's not even dancing well.
Yeah.
Like, when they do the cutaway to Abe Lincoln, and it's supposed to be Abe Lincoln, but it's really one of his ancestors in disguise as Abe Lincoln. Mm-hmm. And they just, as Abe Lincoln, in order to get the crowd's attention, he starts dancing to that techno song.
I like to move it.
Yeah. Here's the thing about that moment that's, I think, especially surprising. He's not even really dancing.
No.
Like, you would think for that moment to sell the I'm Abraham Lincoln and I'm dancing to move it, you would at least have to commit to the dance. And instead, he's just doing like this half-assed bar mitzvah thing where it's like, you're not even getting this is the worst joke ever and you're still screwing up the payoff. Like, it was like, I get that you're like 60 years old, but you got to put your body into this.
Right. For
us to at least not see how creaky this bit is. That was the weirdest thing about it. Like, even the moments that needed to be sold, he didn't really sell them. And all he is overacting. Mm-hmm. And yet he's, because I knew there was a scene of Abraham Lincoln from the commercial, like when I was a kid. I knew there was some kind of Abe Lincoln dancing scene. And in my head, I expected him to be doing like the Running Man and like really dancing and really going crazy.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't. And I'm like, oh my God. Who is not there to say, Dana, can you please, do your fucking job? Make this funny, for God's sake.
This movie doesn't even half-ass it. It doesn't even quarter-ass it. There's zero ass in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, not James Brolin, is his father.
It's his dad, yeah.
No, it is James Brolin,
James
not Josh
Brolin's
Brolin.
the dad, yeah.
I mean, he, as an Italian man, was like, it's just, they're not even, like, I really believe that, like, going into this movie, they probably told James Brolin to have an Italian accent, and he was just like, no.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Because Pistachio has an Italian accent for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
He's in America. His father and grandfather don't have Italian accents. So...
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
There's an attic. There's an attic in his house. Meaning that house has been there for generations. How did he get an accent?
I don't know, dude. And it's hard to even try and make sense of this movie because there's almost nothing that connects at all to make any kind of sense. It's just so outlandish in a way that is clearly trying to be funny just by saying, oh, look at how wacky this is. But it doesn't even do dumb, wacky shit well.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things, you're right, where it's like they're trying to do heightened reality, like Austin Powers.
Right.
They're trying to do surreal reality, but it's like the sense of humor, no one writing this is weird enough to capture that. Like, they're still trying to do old-fashioned set-up punchline jokes in the heightened reality, and just nothing works.
Yeah. Nothing. None of the pop culture references work. None of the like pulling song lyrics as quotes to use as a punchline in a scene that is supposed to, like, that's supposed to be the punchline of the scene is, oh, the fact that he's quoting some obscure song that there's no way the kids are gonna know, but that's supposed to be a punchline. Wacky.
Like, yeah, that's honestly something that I think. I don't know if that's completely over, but it was a problem in older movies. Mm-hmm. Like, incorporating song lyrics or lines from other movies is not funny. There's nothing funny about you saying a line I've heard before.
Right.
I don't even understand what the joke is supposed to be. That just... and anytime you see... And people do that. Bad movies will do that, where they're just like... They'll say a line that you know, and it's like, yes, I am aware of that. Why is that supposed to entertain me?
This movie is the equivalent cinematically of like a shirt with an Anchorman quote on it that used to be sold at Target that is now at Salvation Army. Yeah.
Everything about this movie makes me think that Dana Carvey thought the only problem with my career is there have been too many people saying no to me. And that he was like, if you just give me a bunch of costumes and let me go nuts... He really believed that he would be like a Jim Carrey, where it would, and that's the really crazy thing about this. Jim Carrey was who they originally wanted to play this character.
Really?
Which doesn't make sense to me, because I can't imagine Dana Carvey making this movie not intended for him to play him, that character. But yeah, that's what I've heard, which I guess would have worked a little better, but not really.
Yeah, it's a kind of movie that you just can't save.
It's just not funny. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing about it is you get the impression that he's writing this movie, and whenever something didn't make sense, he's like, people don't know. People don't pay attention to it in a comedy. They're just on for the ride. No one understood Austin Powers. You were just laughing at the lines. Like, I think he really thought that, like, people are just letting it fly by them and not, like, putting things together.
Yeah. You have to, at a bare minimum, you have to have some sort of a structure that the jokes can adhere to and, like, land on, as opposed to just zero sense plot holes, things that just kind of loop around, and montages that are just supposed to be jokes that don't land. It's all just whizzing by, and there's no net behind it to catch it.
I just got the impression, I'm like, they definitely never table read this in front of a crowd. They definitely never got consultants to go through this and say, okay, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. It just seemed like... I would not be surprised if you told me that Dana Carvey is the angriest person that's ever been on a movie set, and that if you say anything to him, he goes fucking nuts. Because this seemed like the kind of thing where everyone was terrified to say anything to Dana Carvey about what's so bad about this movie. Once again, Dana Carvey's what? 65 years old?
Yeah, something like that.
I guess he was in his 40s when he did this. Or late 30s at the least.
And
40.
I think he was in his 40s for sure.
Right, and the character he's playing is either a young, like a child, or just mentally challenged.
Yeah. He's supposed to be, I mean, I get the vibe that he was like trying to play a very young adult, like in his early 20s. Yeah. Yeah. But even then, it would be like, it's in this overly sweet universe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where people can stay that naive. And I got that. Like, I don't even mind that, because a lot of kids' movies have that. But you have to, it was just so bad. I mean, so bad.
There's a lot of individual scenes we can talk about. I'm happy to.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, I think one of the first things I'd like to do when we start, let's go into some scene stuff, is let's watch the trailer before we even get into, because I want to see just like what exactly the fuck was happening here. Like, how did we
remember this trailer?
How did
of course,
we get to this?
It was right after 9/11.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things that's very culturally seared.
And also, I mean, lest we forget, a scene that I definitely want to talk about, the Turtle Club scene, was filmed on 9/11.
That morning, they had a moment of silence. He would have already been in full costume. They had a moment, they all said, all right, let's have a moment of silence for the people who are still dying in the towers. And I really hope that there was some kind of Dana feeling the need to be a leader, some kind of, hey guys, you know, it's just people are really in pain right now, and they're going to need something to laugh at. They're going to need something to get their mind off this. Let's really make sure we give them a good, funny movie to heal the nation.
Let's give them. This is what we need, right? This is what the nation needs. The Master of Disguise.
Well, did you ever hear the interview he did as Paul McCartney?
No.
In the junket, and in his defense, when you do a movie like this, you do these press junkets where you're doing like hundreds of interviews in a row, and it is like the celebrities, they get into like almost a daze, because it's so weird to like have to just do 100 interviews in a row in one day. And I can understand why you start to almost hallucinate to the point where you think it's a good idea that in your Paul McCartney voice, you're like, hey, you know, it's just, we're trying to make a good movie, and it's, you know, it's a post 9/11 world. People need to have 65 minutes where they can sit down with the popcorn and start the healing process. Like, I'm sure in the moment that felt fine.
Oh my God. All right, let's watch this trailer. The Master of Disguise official trailer. Approved for all audiences. I'm so worried.
In a place
it starts like Harry Potter. Actually, exactly like Harry Potter.
In a world of magic.
Oh yeah, a world of magic.
Like, so far, this literally could be a Harry Potter.
Extraordinary power to change their appearance will be left in the hands of one man.
Right.
The music and the clearly trying to be Harry Potter.
Oh, yes, I give it
so clearly.
Nice, you like? Oh, yes, you like it, cheese. Papa.
Now, to solve the mystery.
The Exorcist reference, forgot about that.
Your mother and your father.
This simple waiter must become much more.
Now I can teach you to become a master of disguise.
Really? I'm going to be a master of disguise. I'm going to be a master of disguise. I'm going to be a...
This summer,
Your training begins.
Comedy. Slapping.
I got the number of slappings in this movie.
Prepare to make the change.
The For Dummies joke.
You are a fatty. What is happening?
Uh-oh.
Save me.
Flying around.
Sorry, Grandpa.
he will need a partner.
Assistants commonly fall in love with their disguising masters. Can you resist, Pistachio?
Can you resist me?
I'll give it a shot.
He will need practice.
Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Now you try.
There's the
Who's
wooden
your
dummy,
daddy?
the big reveal after
And a
credits.
whole lot
Yep.
of patience.
A big.
You got a little
My
tomato
God.
soup with a crouton.
We gotta.
No.
You got some
You gotta
milk
get to
butter
that
and
because
ice
that's
cream.
the
You know,
part
you
that's
got
the
the
most
vanilla chocolate
egregiously
strawberry.
thieving
One of the
in
greatest
the whole
things ever
movie.
invented.
Yeah.
And you don't got
And
it.
here's doing his
I am
Scarface.
Prince
There,
Lalejana.
there we go.
And there's the blackface, just a touch. Just a hint of blackface.
Are you a member of
And
the
there's
Turtle
just
Club?
him making noises like an Asian man.
for the
That's essentially
Turtle
the
Club?
joke. And the turtle scene was the whole commercial.
Where'd he go?
Like, the commercials for this movie were all turtles.
All right, because everybody loves the Turtle
of
Club.
disguise.
I think it's time for you to go.
This is what you're doing. This is what I want you to do.
Did you just tell me to shut up?
Yes.
And by the way, that ending part where he's like going like this is what you're doing, so I want you to do, shut up. You could not get more of him just trying to do Austin Powers than that. Like, that's just flat out. You're just trying to do that kind of comedy. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Wow, that was so... once again,
so bad.
happy to see Data working, but...
But at what cost?
I mean, there's so many jokes in there, even in the trailer, that you've seen before. The blank for dummies book to teach you how to do something. The get blowing up and floating around the room. Oh God, he just the bowl cut just to make him look as innocent as possible.
Right, and putting him in these weird sweaters and kid striped shirts and getting beaten up by your grandpa.
Yeah, like the whole time we're just like him. You have to like him. Just
So
beating you over the head with sympathy.
now we have. Let's go to the Turtle Club scene now, where. Yeah. Oh wait, actually, you know what? This is the perfect because if we're gonna let's go in chronological order. Let's go to his brown face scene.
Yeah, that. Now look, he's not the first comedian to do that. What's interesting about this scene is that.
Oh boy. Hold on, I got some weird shit going on my end with this.
The great part about this scene is that it's basically him doing a racist Indian guy impression, but then being encouraged to do a slightly more accurate racist Indian guy impression. And it is shocking.
It's
2002.
It's just like there's no reason for this scene to exist.
I mean, the reason is it's just funny to see people. I mean, because he has like a fake nose too. I mean, he's really going for it. And this is 2002. In 1997, of course, another great movie, Earnest Goes to Africa. Oddly enough, more racist toward Indians than Africans. Because in Ernest Goes to Africa, Ernest plays an untouchable, which is an Indian
the lowest
person.
Caste, yeah.
Right, what used to be the lowest automatic caste, and he does I would venture to say, an even worse Indian stereotype than this one. And pronounced brownface. But I feel like once you're in the 2000s, it's just much worse.
Yeah, because he spends time... They don't show it in this cut of the scene because this person didn't bootleg it right. But he spends time speaking in his weird Italian accent, and then he switches over the course of, harnessing some sort of force from the Star Wars knockoff.
Yes.
The energy to go into a very racist Indian impression.
And the whole point of the scene is that we're supposed to be like, wow, he really turned it on.
Yeah.
He lost himself in that character.
Yes, good. Now all I have to do is...
Oh, no, here we go. Yeah, he's going to do it.
Open the sesame! Open
I
the
mean,
sesame!
the dark eyes they gave him.
Mm-hmm. Playing a reporter funny.
Clown!
Classic
Like a
jokes.
cheap mimic. Anyone can put on a disguise and change his voice.
Anybody
Is that supposed to be an Italian accent?
I guess.
Exactly.
But
For
it's
you to learn of the
there's
invisible energy field.
so little of this movie that
All disguises past
nobody's really putting in any effort except for Dana
the
Carvey.
teeth.
Like
Look
Dana
at the
Carvey's
fucking
really
teeth.
giving it his all.
He looks grotesque
You will be able
right
to
now.
access words
Like, it's not just
that
brownface.
you never dreamed were possible. You can
Yeah, the teeth are horrifying. The makeup around the eyes, the fake nose.
Oh,
You will
God.
become. Now that's
And I guarantee you, that whole morning, he was giddy in the makeup chair, getting this put on.
the mantra.
And what do you want to bet? He was talking in that accent all day.
Oh yeah, here he goes. He's gonna get ready. He's getting into the zone. He's getting method.
Become another person. Become another person. Become another person.
Oh, God, it's so much.
The question is not who I am, the question is who are you? I know who I am. I am Prince Lalejama from the Ringy Dingy Heights near Bombay, Calcutta, and New Delhi, India.
Now, okay, let's just unpack the fact that he says the word India 4 times in there.
Yeah,
That is literally for no reason other than Dana Carvey is having fun. Like, it adds nothing, it makes no sense. He just keeps saying India over and over again because he thinks it sounds funny.
he says he's from 3 different cities. He's saying India 4 times. He's just trying to goof off. This is probably like the 10th take. He may have said even more racist shit before it, but they were just like in the editing. They're like, all right, this is the usable one.
And you can't help but wonder, like, what was the tone on set? Was it a bunch of uncomfortable people? Or, just as likely, was it people just losing their shit laughing at this? Like, and then you wonder, is it because you had to, or maybe they all thought it was funny. Maybe this was just all bad influences on each other, and people were just like, "Oh, you're the king, Dana.
Dana, you're so great. We're gonna make big bucks. We're gonna get a sequel. Pistachios. We're gonna come back."
I mean, this whole thing was obviously built on the expectation of a franchise. But oh god, it's so. The joke is 100% the impression. It's not like, look, there are cases of blackface that are different than others. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying that it's wrong, no one should do it, but it's also good to be like, to look at it in the past and say, this was someone who was making fun of a culture, and this was someone who was actually just doing a very good impression.
Right. There's an obvious difference.
Yeah, this is one of the bad ones.
Yeah.
This is
the
not-
ones. There's sometimes where you go back when you see if you're watching a movie or TV show that has blackface in it, and you sit and you just are like, that was one of those times for me watching Master of Disguise. Just like, this is
because you're like, I did not expect this. Because you were already not enjoying the movie, and then this happens. You're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Because it's not Tropic Thunder or Always Sunny where the joke was blackface is bad. And we're presenting that as the point of the scene. No, this is just being brown is funny. And white guys love doing that one specific kind of Indian accent.
Yeah, I mean, thank God they didn't throw any fucking 7-Eleven references in there or anything. That just would have taken it too over the top.
Let's thank the editor for that.
Thank God. All right, so the final scene that I feel we must absolutely talk about is the Turtle Club, because as we now know, the Turtle Club scene was filmed on 9/11.
Yeah.
Dana Carvey was in makeup, and 9/11 happened, and they said, hey, we got to do something about this. Like, do we film this scene?
Look, we've all been on sets before.
Yeah.
It's a very expensive process. You're always, every dollar you spend on a movie, you're thinking that's one more person we need to get to see this in the theater to be profitable. So you're constantly thinking about cost. So I totally get that he was like, all right, look, it's a bad day, but comedy is just tragedy plus time, and this isn't going to come out for a few. Hey guys, let's just take all these negative emotions and try to harness them and use them and try to really make this the scene that heals the nation. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be, because a lot of these people have family in New York.
Yeah.
And they're probably wondering if they're okay. And you're just like, no, all right, everyone put the turtle nose on him. He's going to say the word a bunch of times in a row. And this is our big laugh. This is our big moment, guys. This is our big set piece.
They took a moment of silence on set.
Yeah, they did.
I just can't, I can only picture the image of, because you know that the only person who was the one at the end of the day, or I guess at the beginning of the day, who came out and was the one who was like, we're soldiering through, was Dana Carvey.
And he had to be in full costume. He had to have that nose on already. And
he was just standing, I just can't help but picture him, full costume, full makeup, just standing there being like, listen, we gotta power through, and we're gonna take a moment of silence. And then just Dana Carvey just standing there in the full Turtle Club costume.
Oh, yeah.
Just standing there solemnly holding hands.
I also wonder, I would love to know the exact number of minutes between that moment and the first joke that Dana told off the cuff, not on screen, the first funny thing he said to break the tension. Because I guarantee you in that moment, he created a sense of self-importance about, we are what America is going to need.
Mm-hmm. So here's the turtle part.
I don't mean to keep harping, but the name the Turtle Club, it's just a name. I think you're taking it a little bit too literally.
Turtle?
I like how they basically need for her to explain what the audience is clearly thinking.
Not exactly. But am I not turtle enough for the Turtle
Poor Jennifer
Club?
Esposito, she's the straight woman.
Is he okay?
He's fine.
He's fine,
She's trying to be normal to the point where they have to have her be the one who's doing the exposition and explaining how ridiculous Dana Carvey's being.
We can go in for a moment.
Right, because this is one of those points where he just starts turning into, he's supposed to be in disguise, but then his characters start just acting like crazy people. Mm-hmm. He's yelling the word turtle for no reason other than he thinks we're going to laugh at. And that's the problem. It's there's no reason for his behavior right now other than he thinks it's funny. But it completely contradicts what he's supposed to be doing.
Right.
Why is he acting like he's insane
right now? That label anywhere. I made that.
And then there's this part that doesn't make sense. How could you tell who a cigar you made for based on a label? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
This goes back to when I said he said India 4 times in a row. He's just been saying the word turtle. That is not good improv. You don't just say your name over and over again.
You're crazy. I can't give you that information.
There's no way it was written down. There's no way they wrote in the script, Dana, turtle, ... turtle, ... turtle.
Would that change your
No.
mind?
He's
This
just
is what happens when you can't say anything, Dan.
Perhaps it's time to go into my shell.
No.
Yes,
cigar thing. It's a very sweaty kind of mystery moment here.
Terrible harm.
We're supposed to make a connection
Kind of
between
hard
the
to make you
label and the
cry
cigar.
like a little baby.
And then there's...
Hey, baby. Can I buy you a drink?
And then there's this part.
Pond water for your friend?
Very funny.
Yeah, just the nose part.
Where'd he go?
Biting off the nose.
Turns him into Voldemort. And then he spits it back. Which is that's like a Looney Tunes joke. That's like a joke for 5 minutes. And now he's fucking breakdancing.
Sitting on the ground. And then it just fades to another scene.
And that's one of those things where it's Dana Carvey just I'm gonna go nuts, guys. Just stand back and let me do my thing. And it just none of it works. There's no logic behind any of it. It's just Dana Carvey enjoying himself on a rainy day.
Yeah. When I was rewatching this movie, there were parts where I thought I had nodded off and missed something that I had to rewind and be like, did I miss something to explain what just happened? And I didn't. And that was one of those times. There's later on in the movie when Jennifer Esposito gets kidnapped, And I was like, did I miss like them kidnapping her? And no, I didn't. They just literally basically had no explanation for it. It's one line that the narrator says, and then all of a sudden we're out.
Yeah, and they definitely had to cut a scene because the movie was going pretty long. It was almost 67 minutes. They definitely had to cut a scene that just didn't work and then explain it with the voiceover. And that's another thing about this movie. To make the 80-minute limit, the 80-minute minimum, they had to have a 12-minute outtakes scene during the credits. Because the movie is less than 70 minutes.
The credits features a bunch of outtakes. It features a bunch of Dana doing impressions just direct to camera and characters that didn't show up anywhere in the entire movie. Like plot points that got brought up and then thrown away.
And considering what they kept, how bad were those scenes?
I mean, it looked pretty bad. It looked pretty fucking dire.
We have to talk about the dwarf.
Let's talk about the dwarf.
Throughout this movie, there's that big wooden dummy that he has to practice fighting on that can hit you back. Because there are so many supposedly funny acts of violence in this movie. Just so many people getting slapped or punched. That's always just supposed to be funny. And at the very end of the movie, you find out that there's been a dwarf inside this dummy the whole time.
Dressed like Mario.
Yeah, so it's hacky on two completely different levels. One, he's dressed like Mario, and two, once again, we've known this whole time he's trying to do Austin Powers. So the last thing he should be doing is chasing around a dwarf. But the fact that he's dressed like Super Mario, nothing encapsulates what's wrong with this movie. Like the idea that they thought, if he's a little person dressed as Mario, that's funny. Yeah. Because people will say, like Mario.
There's the greatest crime I think that comedy can do is have scenes or attempts at jokes where the response is not intended to be a laugh. It's intended to be the crowd going, ah, I know that.
Yeah. Like the Jaws scene.
Yeah.
It was like the Jaws scene was like he's running from like criminals there, and somehow he's suddenly in a boat with a costume and he's doing Quint from, and it's like, I saw Jaws and I still didn't immediately make the connection that that's what he was doing. Like, he doesn't look like the guy, he doesn't really sound like the guy.
No.
And then, I try to remember, the bit of that scene was that he kept saying the word chief. Was that it? He
says chief a lot, and
that's the joke.
It's it. That's it.
Like, the problem with this movie was that, like, how much of this was written down? Because the more that was written down, the sadder this is. That if they, like, I imagine the process of writing this movie was the Deuce Bigalow guy going through the beats of it, and then Dana riffing, they write down whatever Dana said, and then he does it.
Right.
And clearly, they all have that whiff of the first idea you came up with.
Yeah, nobody thought twice at all in making this movie.
Yeah, every joke has that energy of, I just thought of this, that's why it's good. It's like a roast battle where, like, sometimes you'll have a bad joke, but only because you wrote it that day.
Yeah.
And you didn't have enough time to ruminate on it.
You can't shape it and finesse it.
Yeah, and it's like you have that new joke energy where it's new to you, so you think it's funnier than it is. And, I mean, like the pie, for example. At one point, he is disguised as a cherry pie in a very sort of another Looney Tunes kind of joke. But then you have to, like, it seemed like they maybe, in the moment when he's in the room and he says, what if I'm just a cherry pie? And then I just jump out of the pie and I'm just covered in cherry pie. Like, I bet that was funny when they said it, and then when they're actually putting him in this costume, no one's laughing, and they're just like, it'll play on camera though, right? Yeah. I mean, you're a cherry pie. That's crazy. Of course. People are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe he's a pie. Like, I feel like there's a lot of rationalization.
Yeah.
A lot of...
It's, usually I sort of wrap the podcast up by asking if there's anything that could happen that would fix this movie and make it good, but I mean, this is one of those rare times I don't think there is anything that can be done to fix this movie.
What's funny about this movie to me also is that it does, like I mentioned before, it actually really does remind me of an Earnest movie more than Austin Powers.
Mm-hmm.
It's as bad as Earnest, because Earnest does the same thing where he does multiple characters. The only difference is Jim Varney was actually kind of good at characters.
Right.
Like, those are bad movies, but Jim Varney can pull off some really good character work where you do lose him. Like, I don't know if you saw Ernest Goes to Jail.
No, I don't think I've ever seen an Earnest movie at all, actually.
Ernest Goes to Jail, more racist than Ernest Goes to Africa, interestingly enough. But in Ernest Goes to Jail, he plays his own evil twin, and it's actually, like, kind of a good job. And in Ernest Goes to Africa, he plays... He plays a different Indian character, equally racist, but at least less recognizable as the original actor.
Okay.
But I think a similarity between this movie and the Earnest movies is that the funniest thing Dana Carvey does in this movie is play a character that I think is kind of ripped off of an Earnest character, which is the Grammy Yum Yum.
Oh, yeah.
Num Num.
Gammy Num Nums.
That's kind of the funniest thing he does in this movie, almost. And it's very similar to the Earnest character that he also does, which is like this old lady in a neck brace. Which, if you ever watch one of these Earnest movies, they're usually ridiculously unfunny, and then he suddenly does this old lady character that's like actually really funny for like 2 minutes, and then goes back to the regular movie.
Okay. Oh, well, now I gotta watch Ernest Goes to Jail.
Honestly, watch Ernest. Just look up Ernest as the old lady. I forgot what her name is. Because you will be impressed, because you're like, how could someone who's so bad most of the time be this good as this one character?
Who knows?
And we also, the one other thing you have to mention is, when you go the number of ways this movie rips off Austin Powers.
Oh, yeah.
You have to talk about the women.
Yeah.
The women assassins with the giant asses.
Right. That only show up at the very end of the movie.
You just could not. I mean, it's exactly like the Fembot scene.
Mm-hmm.
Except with the extra layer of that they all have the giant asses he lusts after in this children's movie.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, like, lust can be used in a family movie. Like, we've all seen movies where, like, a man's attraction to a woman is exploited, but never when it's specific to their big fat asses.
Right.
That's so much more sexualized than any other way you could do this. And I hope people do watch this movie, because it is a fun movie to just be flabbergasted at.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like a boring bad movie. It's a movie where every scene you're going to have like a what the fuck moment.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the mom. Remember how the mom was kidnapped?
Mm-hmm.
And she thinks she's on a TV show the whole time?
Yeah, there's a potion in the caramel corn to make her think that she's at home cooking.
Yeah, you have to watch that scene like a few times to even understand what the hell's going on. Like, that scene, it doesn't even make sense. You're like, what? Wait, what? She's been acting in a fake TV show for 6 months?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Or the black market eBay scene, where there's clearly some sort of a dark web that Kevin Nealon is in charge of, and Brent Spiner has access to. But it's like publicly accessible, and like Kenan Thompson is just buying stuff off of it. And it doesn't, you just have to sit and just like, what?
Speaking of Kenan Thompson, I wish I had watched this before I worked at SNL so I could bring this up to him. Because I would have loved to have asked, like, when you did this movie, there's no way before you shot that scene that they told you that you're playing yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the credits, it's Kenan Thompson as himself.
Yeah. They had to have just thought, we're just going to slide this right by him.
And he's like third lead. And it just says Kenan Thompson as himself. Like, what? God. What the? That was confusing. And yeah, it's like really, and it's Kid Kenan Thompson. It's like
it's like post all that.
Yeah, it must have been his first year at SNL. Actually, wait, they shot this in 2001.
So this is right. This is because his first year was what, 2003?
I want to say he couldn't have been on SNL in 2001 yet.
No, I don't think so. This had to have been like maybe post all that, pre SNL.
Yeah, it definitely would have been after all that, and Keenan and Kel and all that stuff, and after Good Burger, right?
Yeah.
So he was a star, but it's before they had the SNL connection, which makes it even more bizarre that he's playing himself when he's just like some actor. He's not like a fellow SNL alum yet. That is confusing.
Fucking weird, man. Well, I mean, even though this movie is a dumpster fire and completely like bad in so many different chaotic, inexplicable ways, I do feel like it's something you gotta watch. Like, you have to see it for yourself.
Yeah. I made Tom Goss and Keith Carey watch this with me. Last time I was in LA, I was like, you guys we have to watch this. It's just, and it's really, really fun to watch with professional comedy writers. Like, it's one of those movies. Like, I'll just give you, when I was at SNL, one of the funnest things that we did there, for me anyway, was, so every Wednesday, you have to like just wait around for a few hours after the table read to see who Lauren and everyone else decided would be in the show.
Okay.
So you always have like a few hours to kill, and people just stick around. And I remember one time Taryn put on the Smosh movie.
There's a Smosh movie?
Yes, there is.
Oh, God.
And we watched it was one of the only times we all did something together. The whole, like, the writers and performers, we watched the Smosh movie, and just as the cast of Saturday Night Live were just like laughing at at how bad this movie was. To give you an example of how bad the Smosh movie was, the very last line of the movie, the end of the movie, is that one of the Smosh guys has been in love with a girl. So there's like some girl he doesn't know, and he's in love with her.
Okay.
You know, one of those things. He's like,
one of those classic things. Yeah.
Yeah, the Dreamweaver scene in Wayne's World, and she's played by some famous hot chick, also from YouTube. So no offense to her, you know, she's. And then the very end of the movie, he finally says to her, "By the way, I never got your name," and she goes, "Oh, my name's Frank," and he goes, "What the fuck?" Credits.
Christ.
That's like in 2016.
My God. They already did that joke in Ace Ventura in the 90s. And they
even
at least
then it was
had 20.
hacky.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was movies every year somewhere that had that same joke. I mean, She's a Man was one of the hackiest mainstays in comedy for decades. You know, just it's still popping up in memes.
Yeah. It's still hacky.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, it is what it is. We can
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
We're all going to be saying that from now on. It's just, that's for your audience. That's of course what Trump just said about everyone who died of coronavirus.
Right.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's
the
what
Russians
it is.
have taken over the South Side. We can't sell heroin anymore. It is what it is, T.
Listen, she was a man. It is what it is.
Yeah. And in fairness, though, there's an after-credit scene where he marries her anyway. Like that makes up for it.
That's to show you that he's woke. That's how you know.
Right.
In 2016, it's okay.
As
long as you marry them.
That was the reshoot where they were like, hey, listen, GLAAD is boycotting us.
Oh no, Smosh's illustrious career as primetime comedians is going to come to an end.
Well, that was the funny thing about this movie was this movie came after they had this long media kind of thing where they were complaining that that they're so popular, but no one's giving them like real movies or TV shows. And you know, and then this happened.
Well, Dave, it's been a pleasure digging up the dirt about Master of Disguise and Smosh and all of this garbage.
If you enjoy the movie and you feel like I need more like this, I fully encourage you to go to the old SNL archives and look up another Dana Carvey character named Chang.
Oh, fuck. You know, I think we might have watched a Chang sketch when we wrote for Historical Roast in the room.
That sounds right.
It sounds about right.
That was historical in many ways.
Yeah, I feel like that got brought up somewhere.
The only thing I'll tell you about Chang, if you're going to see it, is I think there were definitely many different versions of it, but there's only 2 versions you can find online, maybe even 1. And the one thing I heard at SNL was that after the first time they did Chang, it was so popular that the second time they did it, it got a standing ovation at the beginning of the sketch. Like when they saw that it was the second Chang, the audience lost their minds.
Oh my God. Incredible.
And this is also
just
true.
Incredible.
They softened it. They made it less racist by changing the name from Chang to Ching Change.
That's the change we need to see in the world. That's the Ching change we really need to get behind.
Yeah.
Dave. Where can the listeners find you on the internet if they want to ask you more questions about and spitball with you about Dana Carvey's career?
My name is Dave Sirus. Last name Sirus like virus. So that's my name on Instagram or Twitter. And if you want to see me on YouTube, you can either look up my name, but also I have a lot more videos under my old character name Brick Stone, which is where I interview people. And those are the only videos I have that people like.
Well, go check those out and check out King of Staten Island. Still available. Still worth your time.
I think it's funny. You can no longer rent it.
Only buying.
You can. I think they took it down for a week because it comes back out next week to buy.
Very convenient.
So definitely wait for that. Means I assume the rental price will go down also with it, or you can just buy it for a different amount, whatever it is.
Yeah, you'll figure it out, guys. You're smart with the money. You can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for all of my things. It's weird to say show dates because they don't really exist still, but I got stuff on there, so go check it out. And if you like the show, support the Patreon. And that is it. This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Dave.